Good morning, everybody. I'm Reverend J. Wolin, the settled minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota. It is my honor to be here with you. It's also my honor. I'll be sharing the service today with Paula Cole Jones, who was with us all day yesterday and Friday night for a workshop, A Culture of Inclusion. I want to especially invite our guests today, visitors, whether in person or online via YouTube, and remind you that you are welcome to participate in any events at this church. If you want to find out more about the church, you can go on the website and click the link that is on there, or right outside the doors of the sanctuary, there is a welcome team member or membership team member who is happy to sign you up for that newsletter. Of course, after service, we'll have, I saw they had black and whites today in addition to cookies, so I was like in heaven there. So hopefully there'll be some left after the second service. We try to be fair between the two services, so we look forward to getting to know each other. I believe we have one announcement today from the auction team. Vicki, are you here? Oh, right there in front of me.
Good morning. Nice to see you all again. I have a little bit of auction housekeeping to do. We still have one fabulous cottage that is up for bids. And there's an auction table today is in the Lexow wing. And so if you're interested in the auction, in bidding on the on this wonderful cottage in Wisconsin, please see us. If you want items at the auction, you know you can pay with a credit card. Online, you had a link to the invoice on your invoice. You can also, if you prefer to pay with check or cash, the auction committee is the auction pickup and pay is in the Lexow wing because everything was blowing outside, and we'll be happy to be there after this service, and so you can pick up anything you haven't picked up yet, and you can pay for whatever you haven't paid for yet. So thank you all for doing that. So there are so many people that I need to thank for their efforts in making this auction as successful as it was. I need to thank Dee and Roberta and the AV team back there. It makes me look and sound pretty good. And to all of I can't tell you how many volunteers we had from the very beginning until right now, where we have volunteers in the Lexow wing doing payments. We couldn't have done it without the number of people who helped along. Along with that, and more important, this auction committee was made up of a group of teams. And I need to acknowledge those people because without them, this auction could not have happened. The tech team is Karen Bush and Terry Holzinger and Scott Rubin. And if you're in here, just raise your hand or stand up or do what you'd like just to know that we're here. The publicity team was Ava Whaley, Joanne Glady, and Laura Glady. The donations team, Joanne Glady, Jim Keeney. The food team, Yolanda Stevens, Ethan Massa, and Jan Wolin. The logistics and tickets team, David Cowell, Mary Jane Cowell. And the bidding and table host team, Mary Jane Cowell. You can see how many people worked so hard. But there's one more team, and that's my home team. Thank you so much to my husband, Don, who welcomed the auction into our home to live with us for these many, many months. He's been a rock. And finally, because of the generosity for all of you in donating and bidding, the projected earnings of this year's auction are about $32,000. Thank you all very, very much.
And also, although maybe she's too humble to say it, I really want to thank Vicki for taking over this. Yes, and I think it's a great example because she experimented with a lot of new ideas and all of them worked out great. And I think that's a good model for all of us to think about things around the church. So I now want to introduce Sanaya Carroll, returning to join us for her musical gifts that she shares with us. Sanaya.
Good morning. I'm doing something I haven't done in many, many years. I'm like a guitar master or something. I mostly sing, but these days, today I'm going to do this. This tune is called Stand Up. Stand up as not just in standing up, but getting active, doing something, you know, talking and then following up the talk with something else. I was always, I guess you could just say I've been a protest kid all my life. I don't know. I think my first songs were about, you know, make the world a better place. And that's really, I don't know. I think children get that. You know, they know if they want the world to be a better place. And so we can learn from that whole sensibility there. Take it forward with ourselves. Stand up. Join in together so that the music can be heard. Be strong enough to carry this melody throughout the world. Oh, take your soul to a higher place, a haven in your heart, 'cause that's where you'll find the secret of who you really are. Stand up if you want to be counted. Rise up if you want to be heard. And just lift your voice to the heaven. Stand up, show that you really care. I once was told a story, yes I was, of how a man would come along. He'd lead us to the glory, and he'd teach us right from wrong. Oh, but men have come and men have died, and though their legacy remains, I've come to understand that it's up to us to change. Stand up if you want to be counted. Rise up if you want to be heard. Just lift your voice to the heaven. Stand up, show that you really care. Whoa, 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 I made up my mind. Whoa, 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 I'm gonna make some changes. Whoa, 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 if I look hard, I'll find the answers inside. I need you to clap with me. Stand up for the beauty and sharing of love. Stand up for the courage to be who you are. Stand up, get happy. Stand up, stomp the floor. Stand up, feel the rhythm. Let it flow free. Stand up if you want to be counted. Rise up if you want to be heard. Just lift your voice to the heaven. stand up, show that you really care. Whoa, stand up if you want to be counted. Rise up if you want to be heard. Just lift your voice to the heaven. Stand up, show that you really care. Stand up, show that you really care. Thank you.
So to get everybody, hello, can you hear me? Okay, now I can hear myself, okay. Well, to get everybody used to a little uncertainty, we're not going to do the opening words that are in the order of service. We are going to read The Sacred Hoop by Black Elk.
Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all,
and round beneath me was the whole hoop of the world.
and while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell.
And I understood more than I saw.
For I was seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things of the Spirit.
And the shapes, as they must live together like one being.
And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make one circle, wide as daylight and starlight.
And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree.
To shelter all the children.
And I saw that it was holy. And so now please join in with me in saying the words of affirmation which are printed in your order of service and will be on the screen above me. As we light the chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, we affirm our proposed eighth principle. We, the member congregations of Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse and multicultural beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions.
Good morning. We've now come to our time for all ages, but before I read our story today, I have an announcement for all ages. And that is, if you are new to Unitarian Universalism, or if you are new to our church, and you would like to learn more about us, we are offering a class next Saturday from 9 until noon. We will have a light lunch that would be provided to you, to give you more information about who we are, both as a faith and as our church. However, for us to be able to offer this class, I need today 5 people to sign up. We have a couple, but I need 5 people to sign up. I know I sound like a hawker. 5 people today. Don't wait. This offer may go for to next Saturday. But we will offer another class in May. So if you can't make up your mind today, just know that we'll have another one in May. So now it's time for our story. And our story this time is called The Circles All Around Us by Brad Montague, illustrated by Brad and Christy Montague. We begin by drawing a circle on the ground along each shoe. A safe little place for just one person. Nobody in this circle but you. You could keep that circle closed to everyone but yourself, but that would be a little bit like a library with just one book on the shelf. So let's draw a bigger circle for you and your family to share. Now you will see what all can happen in a circle full of care. It becomes a happier circle as more loved ones come to stay. And wouldn't it be even better if all your friends could come and play? So you stretch and draw your circle even bigger than it's been. And let a few more people know that they are welcome in. In the circles all around us, everywhere that we all go, there's a difference that we can make and a love we can all show. Yet, there are still so many outside the circle who are different in all they do. And though it feels slightly uncomfortable, we draw a bigger circle for them too. Now, it doesn't mean the circle is easy. It can get harder the more we share. Like this little girl only wears dresses, and this little girl only likes comfy shorts, and that's Team Pie, and this little girl says, I'm quiet and shy. But what wonderful things can happen when love is known and felt everywhere. As time passes, our eyes open, we see others that we really care for. And that's when we ask ourselves, well, what is this circle really there for? So let us create bigger circles all around us for the rest of our days. Let our caring ripple out in a million little ways. And in the circles all around us, everywhere that we go, there's a difference we can make and a love that we can show. And as our circles grow and we watch them wonder-eyed, remember, the first circle started with just the love you hold inside. So let us take a moment to sit there and think about all the circles in our lives that we have created. There are so many circles that I have not thought about in a while, but those circles are still part of the circle of me. So now I'd like to invite our younger UUs in the audience to join me in the West Wing, which is out the back doors and over here, where we too will talk about circles in our lives and create a few more. Thank you.
Centering in words today are from the Reverend Sophia Bettenkoff, from a speech at General Assembly 2017. Reverend Bettenkoff is about to be elected president of the Unitarian Universalist Association this June. I quote, "I'd like to invite folks to spend some time thinking about what the heart of Unitarian Universalism really is. What are the central values? Where is the faithfulness for you? Where is the interwoven community and relationality for you? What are the things that can never be set down? What is inherent to us?" And so, as we go into a time of silence, I invite you to contemplate these questions about how they relate to the future of Unitarian Universalism, to our congregation, and as well to our lives as well. So Paula Cole Jones, who is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, you can read her bio on the back of the order of service. I've been to many trainings with her over the years, even before I was a minister. And so I just want to welcome you to our pulpit today. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
So today is going to be a little different. Paul and I are just going to have a conversation as part of the reflections today. So many of us were not here this weekend for the workshop, for the 8th Principle and Community of Communities. Can you give us what you did in 8 hours in about like a minute or two?
It's magic, right? Well, so the 8th Principle grows out of our ongoing work around civil rights and anti-racism, decades of work, many people. And so many folks were on the front line during the civil rights period where the struggle was for integration. And legally, we achieved integration, but we know that it didn't go far enough.
Right.
And each generation has to find their voice in this because we have a long way to go. And so anti-racism is it's the work of our times right now. The eighth principle calls for us to do the work of anti-racism and anti-oppression. How do we create communities where people are embraced in their full humanity and not according to some old social constructs that have put barriers, some barriers that still remain. Some of those barriers are in our heads, some of them are actually in the systems. And so the eighth principle is calling on us to not just treat that as a social justice project, but to make it central to congregational life. This is our work to do now. Now, the community of communities is it's a conceptualization of church that moves us from seeing church as a family, which was already there before any of us were born, to really embracing the complexity of who we are, our identities, our organizational structure, and so seeing church as a community of communities where everyone is already inside. These two things together, I think, will be practices of what it means to truly build the beloved community, especially as Martin Luther King envisioned it.
Right. And one of the things that stood out for me yesterday, no matter how many years I do, there's always new learning, and mostly it's learning about myself and my own sort of biases and frames. But we talked about there's a family model, as a the community of communities as opposed to the family model, and we often and I'll speak for myself from the I position, think of binaries all the time, right? Like it either has to be one or the other, and I really like the concept that we can still have a family model, people still exist, but that is not what is centered.
Yes.
And when I say family model, I'm not talking about families. I am talking about church structure as a hierarchical, like, representation of family. I just want to be clear about that. And that model does tend to be hierarchical as opposed to horizontal in decision-making types of aspects of structure.
Yes, and I don't think that we are often aware of how powerful the image, the idea of family is. Yes, it's warm and it's inclusive for the people who are already here.
Right.
But it's not necessarily the best model for us to really thrive, to really be able to capture the energy and the talents and the contributions of the full community.
Right, and and not every family is well functioning also, and I think all of us can relate to some degree, or many of us can. So this gives us a wider circle, and so the question is also, when we look at it from a community standpoint, as opposed to a hierarchical structure. So how are decisions made? How are the different communities, how do they interact with each other?
Yes, so in a community of communities model, decisions would be made in the specific communities, and then you come together for the collective decision. It's a more democratic process than the current processes that we usually use. So think about that. A decision that's placed in the community of youth, they may have different ways of processing the information, different vision of what they see. Community of people who are doing music, people of color, any way that you make the community happen, the voices then start to get weighed differently. And the decision is informed by the communities and not just by individuals. So we come out with a way of serving everyone better.
That's great. Do you have a question for me, since I've been asking a question?
Of course I do. So you have been a Unitarian Universalist minister for 12 years and a member even longer. I'd like for you to respond to what you've seen in the way of change over these years and this new possibility,
right.
So as we move forward.
And this is the interesting thing about two services, because I answered this, I'm going to answer this very differently than I did in the first service, because I got, in between time to think about it. But, going back even to the 60s, there was a black empowerment controversy. I could do a whole hour service, probably 2-hour service on that one. But what we learned as a denomination from that, or association from that, is that it's important to allow groups or communities to be able to self-direct what their needs are. Yes. And I think we actually put that into place fairly successfully in integration of the LGBTQ plus community, right? And I remember reading a story about this in the 60s, where a group of African Americans wanted to do that, to meet, and there were people banging on the door at General Assembly saying, no, everybody has to be invited to every single meeting. And they learned from that sometimes people, especially when they are in a minority within a larger group, need to be able to self-direct what their needs are. Now, we've done, over the years since I've been a UU, we've started more and more learning from that, but also then doing more education. And now we've started circling back to, we've talked about issues of anti-racism and passed things at General Assembly for years, going back, who knows, into the 70s, at least into the 60s, actually. And they've never really come to fruition. And we have continued that educational aspect, I think, which has accelerated, I think, and I think it's been even heightened even more to an advocacy. I think since the death of George Floyd, many people were home during COVID, and it was right in front of us, although it's been happening every week for years and decades, but it was something I think you couldn't avoid. And I think that moved people to accelerate and to move to more than just education, but actually let them see some of the oppression up front. Because it is very easy to avoid, particularly in communities like this, if you're not intentional about doing the work. And so I have seen over the last few years many UU congregations becoming much more active in advocacy work as well now.
Yes, and from what you're saying, it reminds me, Unitarian Universalism is it's universal in terms of our values and principles. Truly, I mean, I've been to Africa and have worshipped with Unitarian Universalists in 4 different countries in Africa. And culturally, it's different, but they even have schools, and the children sung the same hymns that we were singing as we attended. So I think it's important for us to create these spaces so that the expression of Unitarian Universalism can come through or exist, and it doesn't have to look the same. As we do that, we will grow in our vibrancy and our strength and our ability to reach out and really make a difference in the world.
It does. We'll talk more about that in our second conversation. But I think it does speak to an issue, right? When there are differences, there's always uncertainty, right? And new things. But I just want to assure everybody, despite all the uncertainty that happens just naturally in the world, in Unitarian Universalism, I want you to know there's always one thing you can be certain about, that we will have a collection every Sunday morning to support the work of this church. And so I encourage you to be as generous as you can. If you're online, you can, there's a link that you can click on to donate, or if you're on your cell phones. So let this sacred time begin. Our next reading is attributed to W.E.B. Du Bois. Now is the accepted time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season. It is today that our best work can be done, and not some future day or future year. It is today that we fit ourselves for the greater usefulness of tomorrow. Today is the seed time. Now are the hours of work, and tomorrow comes the harvest. And now, once again, Sanaya Carroll.
When I was in college, I had a wonderful friend named Francia. She was Ecuadorian. And her brother was a pretty enigmatic kind of guy. Anyway, he was cute too. But he said, let me say here, a little bit better. He said the thing that bothered him about Americans is that we'd always say, yeah, America the beautiful, America the great, my country and everything. And that's great, it is. Except that when we say America, we often only are thinking of, United States, which doesn't have quite the same ring as America, So he loved this song. He introduced me to the song. It's a song called, I know it as a few titles, but Canción de las Américas, Song of the Americas, or Canción de Todos, Song for Everybody. And it seemed to fit perfectly for what everyone is speaking of today and what we're focusing on. And I'll just tell you what the chorus means so you'll know what I'm talking about. Todas las voces, todas. That means all the voices, all of them. Todas las manos, todas. All the hands, all of them are going to make a great big sound in the wind. Hacer un clamor en el viento. And it says, canta conmigo, canta. Sing with me, hermano americano, my American brother. All of us, right? Y hermanas too, but in Spanish, hermanos covers everybody. And libera tu esperanza, liberate or let your hopes be liberated con un grito en la voz, with a shout in the voice. I love that. Salga a caminar por la cintura cósmica del sur. Piso en la región más vegetal del tiempo y que la luz. Siento al caminar toda la piel de América en mi piel. Llevo en mi sangre un río que libera en mi voz su caudal. Sol de Alto Perú, rostro a Bolivia está mi soledad. Un verde Brasil, besa mi Chile, cobre y mineral. Subo desde el sur hasta la entraña de América total. Una raíz de un grito destinado a crecer y estallar. Oh, I need some clapping. Pam, 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 yes. Todas las manos, todas las voces, toda el pueblo puede ser clamor en el viento. Canta conmigo, canta, hermano americano, libera tu esperanza con un grito en la voz. Ay, ay. Gracias, thank you.
I think we're next. Yeah. All right. So what do you want to talk about now?
Theology.
Theology. Okay. What would you like to talk about theology?
Well, my work, especially in the last, I guess, 3 years now, that we've been working deeply on behalf of the whole Unitarian Universalist community, and the periodic review, which we are called to do every 15 years, of our principles and sources. You'll hear Article 2, right?
Right.
That has made it very, very clear to me that one of the things that makes Unitarian Universalism what it is, what we are, is our embrace of theological pluralism. That's unique.
Right.
And in order to embrace a theological pluralism, we have to be able to really look at ourselves and look at other people in terms of their own uniqueness, you know, what people bring. And along with this plurality is the support of each person's journey in their search for truth and meaning. And so then the creation of a community that can hold all of that complexity. And as a minister, and your study of the history of Unitarian Universalism, how have you seen it evolve theologically over time, and what do you see happening in the future?
Well, you know, I entered in the 80s into Unitarian Universalism, so it was already starting the sort of the evolution to a more pluralistic congregational environment. Having come from a Jewish background, which I still value, having brought as well into it and deepened my Buddhist tradition in Unitarian Universalism, to me, when I first entered as a member, the exploration of different sources of religious and spiritual thought was what was so meaningful to me. It allowed me to grow as a human being, and as a minister, I find it's very important to create an environment where that can flourish and to make opportunity, because we don't really know. Each person has their own way of making meaning often, and so for me, it's how do we create an environment that allows for that. And for example, we had a solstice service here for the first time in a very long time. We had 93 people show up for that, and so clearly there is a desire. So now, how do we support, you know, those group of people who want to do that? And so from a bigger picture theological standpoint, to me, it's about, right, where do we find our unity in that plurality? And for me, I call that a relational theology. How do we relate to each other despite our different theologies? You know, I often say, you know, we often hear people are like-minded, but I've said this here before. I think, no, we're more like-valued. Right, because if you get any 10 Unitarians in a room, you know you don't agree on everything, right? So, but we tend to have the same values and are focused on the same values, much of which is freedom of religious thought and how to express that. And so to me, it's the relational covenant that we have with each other, about how we agree to be with each other in community despite our different theological positions.
Yes. So covenant is so important. That is our agreement of how we create and hold this community that's so complex that we're holding many other things. Something that I have heard more than once, and most recently it was Bill Sinkford speaking in a conversation about covenant, is that there's the covenant that people have among ourselves, but there's also the covenant that we each have with whatever that is, that helps us to understand the world is so much bigger than ourselves. And so they talk about the horizontal covenant and the vertical covenant, which is so important. What is it that holds you when you are having a hard time finding something to hold on to?
Right, in those times of need, right? And you know, I'll say this, but a lot of, I find, at least for many, it is that community, right, that supports each other, and in a tangible way, as opposed, you know, so I think it is both, but the vertical tends to be more individualistic, I find, whereas the horizontal is more communal, and allows for those different verticals along the horizontal.
Many different ones.
Right, like a graph almost.
And that they may change.
Right.
You know, I grew up in All Souls Church, and I identified as a humanist, which I still do. But in time, I definitely have agnostic beliefs. I don't know, we don't know, but I am open to the possibilities.
And I think, you know, with all the, you know, things, we have to learn to be nimble and to adapt, because a lot of things are going to be new to people. And so I always at least quote this quote attributed to Martin Buber, the Jewish theologian, who said, you know, we are a covenant-making, covenant-breaking, covenant-remaking community. And I think it's so true. We're not perfect. We are going to fail. And so we need to then remake that and reconcile when that happens.
Right. And when I heard you say that before, it stirred something in me.
Right.
Because some covenants need to be broken.
Right.
And I read a quotation from Reverend Rebecca Parker, who's one of my favorite theologians. Some of you may have heard me say this weekend. But she says, before you write a new covenant, first you have to be honest about the covenant you are already in.
Right.
And so we as a society, there are covenants that we are already in that need to be broken and remade, right? And so some of the challenges that we're facing these days, culturally, politically, are about those covenants. Which ones need to be broken? How do we make that circle wider so that everyone can flourish?
Right, and and because it's structures that we have been living with, and a construct that we've lived with for most of our life, and as we become aware, we believe revelation is ongoing. That's a key component of UU theology, and if that's true, then we have to be willing to change as that new revelations come to us. So I think that's very important. I agree.
And you know what? I believe in the potential of Unitarian Universalism to truly be able to create that beloved community, the one that Martin Luther King talked about, not just a comfortable community, but one that's engaging in the struggle of what it means to be inclusive. I think we really can do this.
Right, and you know, I want to make a point, that's what the community of communities, we already have many different communities. There are some people who, social justice is their community. We have some people who small group ministry is their community.
Music.
So, what?
Music is
Music,
the community.
clearly its own community. So, And so one of our covenants, though, our sort of implicit covenants, is that we'll try to end on time. And so I think we have finished. I just want to thank you so much for this weekend, Paula, and for just these conversations and worship as well. So it always brings up new things and new ideas, and I encourage all of us to engage in them. So let's all give a big hand for Paula Cole Jones.
Thank you. I have felt so welcome this weekend. Great congregation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now for our final song of the day. So now, Carolyn, I encourage you to, as the Spirit moves you, to move with this song. It is meant to be clapped and danced to, and whatever it moves you.
But I can't help but say really quick. You know how when you're doing something and you fall, you know, or you're teaching a little kid to walk and they trip and they fall? Or you're trying to ride the bike and you fall, you know? These wires. It happens. And every time you fall, what do you learn? You learn how to find your balance. You learn about what you really need and what you really want to get what you need, to get to where you want to get to. And that's what it's all about. So as we move forward with this song, and yeah, we're going to trip. It's part of being human. It's okay. We learn from our falls. We find what we really need and want in our lives. That's where the light can come in. So, with no further ado, thank you, Paula. Thank you, Jay. And thank all of you. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Let's keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna get some rhythm now. Come on, girl, you know what to do. Gonna keep on moving forward. Moving proudly, sorry. Keep on moving proudly. Keep on moving proudly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Woo! Gonna keep on singing loudly. Keep on singing loudly. Gonna keep on singing loudly. Never turning back. Never turning back. I'm gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna keep on across the borders. Reach across the borders. Reach across the borders. Never turning back. Oh, never turning back. Gonna end the occupation. Hey, end the occupation. End the occupations. Never turning back. Never turning back. I'm gonna stop these wars together. Stop these wars together. Stop these wars together. Never turning back. No, we're never turning back. Gonna keep on moving forward. What we gonna do? Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. No, no, no. Never turning back. Woo! That's us. Thank you.
And so, please join me in the words of extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of communion. Let me hear it on the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. Thank you.